So why won't a treaty work in Australia?
I wouldn't say it's an impossibility. The difficulty is Māori is there's one language which is intelligible from Northland all the way down to Otago in the south, Stewart Island. Māori is more or less a similar language. There's a few, like say Glaswegian is not the same as London, but it's not like you can't understand Billy Colony. You say those guys from Tuhoe, they speak kind of like Billy Colony, and those guys from Otago, they speak like,
Sean Connery.
Her Majesty the Queen or whatever. But they'll have arguments about who's got the most pure and best Maori. It's usually the tribe they come from.
Yes.
But you get that, but that's all superficial. There's a unity in Maori. There's a standard Maori that's taught across the whole country, which cannot be replicated here. If you take, say, Gugu Yamathea, which is the language spoken by Noel Pearson, who also writes for The Australian from time to time. Does he still write for the New Zealand? Sorry, for The Australian?
Yeah. Not sure.
I don't think he's written for a while, but he was one of the prominent advocates for The Voice, and his people are from that Cooktown area, just north of Cooktown. And there's maybe 500 or 1,000 speakers of that language. Very hard to keep a language going when you have that small numbers. And that's the trouble with most of the Australian Aboriginal languages, is they have very small numbers. Because of the highly dispersed nature of Aboriginal society in the first place.
Different identities too. Like now they've been grouped as one. But
they are not the same. And that's the thing. Aborigine is like this white fella expression, which just literally means the people who are here at the creation, ab origine, from the origin of time. They were here at 4000 BC. When God created the earth, he put the Aborigines there. That was the 1788 view, is like they would describe the women as Evites because they had no clothes on. They were seeing them in these sort of Genesis-like terms and seeing, my God, these people haven't made any progress since the eighth day. Which was quite a shock to the the British. So you're seeing these people who are in the state of nature, as they would say, naked as the day they were born, living in a very simple life. Not very many of them, highly dispersed. And the language, Governor Hunter, who was the second governor, said of the language, he said, these people have people who live 50 miles from each other have different words for the sun and the moon. The language changed quite significantly, and there wasn't that much travel between groups. Like you might go to your neighboring group and maybe your neighbor's neighbor, but beyond that, it was very rare for you to do like a five tribal group travel, because that's actually a long way.
Women got stolen, right? I heard you'd go get yourself a wife, and it'd be hard. You'd have to learn a whole new language without Duolingo. That's quite difficult.
Well, yeah. A total immersion works. If you just take people and just stick them, there is nothing except people speaking a foreign language and they're pointing at stuff and looking at stuff. You pick it up very quick. Women were like, and one of the things about the dispersed nature and the small density is Aborigines have these amazingly complicated rules about who you're allowed to marry.
Yeah.
To prevent cousin marriage, which is a real issue in this kind of scenario. So they have all these sort of moieties, I think they call like skin groups and things, which say, well, you're the wrong skin, you cannot marry this person. Like, that's it, forget about it.
So there were a lot of arranged marriages, right?
Mostly, they have to be arranged because you got to make sure that you're in the right group, and you can't just be doing it on you go to the big day out, like the Munga Festival, the Nut Festival, one of those big corroborees, and just get it on. It's like, no, we got to check. We got to check your skin groups and the ancestries and whatnot to make sure that you're from a mob that we will let you get married to. So there's a lot of complexity in that respect. And there's a lot of things about Indigenous society which are kind of interesting. But I think the difficulty for the Indigenous here with respect to a treaty is, well, it'd have to be a treaty with each of these groups, which have, and this is the reality. The Noongar Treaty applied to the Noongar who had that Perth area. These have to be done at a local level. So whether it can be done at the state level is kind of questionable, because you deal with all sorts of complications. Like, is there anybody left who's really eligible?